am so excited to hear about localization. At first I thought this was going to be at the very I really thought it was going to be about the game. I thought it was the team that is doing the signage for the new player experience, like your local areas at first. Then I was like, oh my god, localization is language. And like when I just for like a split second, I was like, are we really doing this? We're really doing this. We're really doing this. So here we go.
Star Citizen is a globally distributed project. With 5 studios across 4 countries and 2 continents, people from all over the world have come to Cloud Imperium to help make those tandem games we're creating all that they can be. But the Persistent Universe and Squadron 42, with some minor exceptions for Xi'an and Banu, have been a mostly English affair so far. That single language focus is not uncommon during the development of any project. But as we approach the next major milestones for Star Citizen and Squadron 42, it's become time to begin the process of expanding our language support to match those of our players and communities around the globe.
Hold on. Are they, dude? This is actually, I'm sorry, this is actually kind of scary. I know Squadron 42 is like, you know, being worked towards a finished product, but them mentioning Star Citizen very likely means that like a beta for Star Citizen is something that they feel like they're working towards, and because they've mentioned it a few times now, and there's not a lot going on yet. It's like what I'm saying is, and why this might be bad, is that they are content with the state of things more than they probably should be. And yeah, that's not good.
With that in mind, we'd like to take this episode of Inside Star Citizen and introduce you to one of the newest teams being built here. Now, currently less than 6 months old, let's meet some of the folks working to bring localization support to Star Citizen and Squadron 42.
I'm Yagoda. I am the localization lead at CAG.
Soy Brice Fajardo, soy especialista en control de calidad de localización.
It's Morph in Spain. Holy shit.
Vengo de España.
I'm Jonathan Lowndes, and I am the localization and English dialogue pipeline producer.
Hola, mi nombre es María Laura Palestrini, soy especialista en localización para español en CAG.
2 Spanish.
Donc, je m'appelle Yannick Simon-Klein.
1 German so far.
Le spécialiste localisation à CIG à Francfort.
안녕하세요. 한국어 로컬라이제이션 스페셜리스트 최유진이라고 합니다.
Okay.
Localization is much more than just translation.
We have the full control of the tone we want to give to the game.
The localization specialists want to break the language barrier.
We're really trying to give players the best experience we can.
And understanding how important it is to take games to other audiences.
We've started thinking about localization very early at CAG.
Well, usually localization is one of the last steps in game development.
In this particular situation...
But this is CIG, so you know what? Fuck it. Let's just do it whenever, because whatever you're supposed to do last at CIG, let's do it first. Because that's what we need. Not that any of this will slow the game down. Not that I'm sitting here going, I speak English, I get to enjoy the game how I want, and others don't. So I don't want to be disrespectful towards people who don't speak English and be that cocky American that I'm sure you all hate. But the idea of just CIG in general being just doing things backwards is just another problematic thing to see. That's all.
To make sure we have aligned everything from
legal text, marketing, dialogue, scripts for dubbing, anything that has to do with UI, descriptions.
We want to make sure that everyone can enjoy the game, regardless of wherever they are in the world.
That's interesting.
Normally, what I do, day-to-day basis is adapt to the tech stack I have to deal with pertaining translation.
We also have to adapt that whatever is not translatable in words is actually understandable anyway.
It's about experience, right? It's about culture.
I found out from the Korean community they actually made this Korean patch for
Yeah,
Star
this seems
Citizen.
like trying to reach other markets.
I guess that made me realize
and
the
get more
users
money,
are actually
more than anything.
willing to
I
play
agree,
the games in their own language if they could. That actually
it's never about making the
motivates me
game.
a lot.
It's about making more
There
money.
are a lot
Is
of
almost what it
conversations
always
with
feels
other
like.
departments to make this as immersive as possible.
As LQA specialist, I'm in charge to, once we have those translations implemented in the game, to ensure that those translations are both working correctly and they are correct in the context.
We use a tool called StarWords, in which narrative inputs their English text, and after they approve it, it gets sent to us.
Agreed. I see
via
its
the same
potential
tool.
positive too, Morph,
During which
but
process we export it out into our translation tool. Then we translate it, proofread it, edit it, and do any necessary corrections as needed, and then export it back into StarWords, and from StarWords into the game.
okay. The thing that one of my mods said, Zeus, in our Discord, is there are so many lines in Squadron 42 that it's likely that they have to start now, but that doesn't mean that Squadron 42 is anywhere near done. I mean, we both know that Squadron 42 and Star Citizen are both get pulled out of the game dev branch. We know what gunplay feels like. We know what combat feels like. We know what all these things feel like, and I'm not necessarily buying that this game is anywhere near close to finished. There's barely systems for anything going on. I just think that they said it in the beginning, I think about localization earlier. And yeah, they said it earlier about we started earlier than ever before. Normally we would do this at the end, but
Visually, you can see the work that an art team or a cinematics team do, and you can go, yeah, I can see the flair there. But it's not until you speak a lot of these languages, you understand that maybe there's an Easter egg,
true,
maybe
though.
the wording is like similar, is like
all the
lifted
little
from a
Easter
Han
eggs might
Solo
be hard for
monologue
people
or
to
something,
understand.
and then you're like,
in
oh
other
my god,
languages.
you squeezed that in and it fits. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
We have to be very careful to adapt the product to there is in a format and appropriate form for each locale.
To be fair, I think a lot of Korean people are fairly familiar with Western culture, so we use a lot of English words, sometimes as a meme, sometimes that's just as professional terms.
A word that
that
is very, very common, and it's like in European Spanish people, to grab something is coger, which in most countries in Latin America it means to have intercourse. So that's a really funny difference that we love.
So my brother-in-law is Cuban and my wife is Venezuelan, and every once in a while when we're having lunch or dinner together as a family, we talk about just the difference between Cuban Spanish and Venezuelan Spanish and Colombian. There's a different word for hanger, like what you would hang your clothes on, for all of them.
About all the time.
As a producer, I have my eyes 12, 18, 20 months down the line at any given point because I live in spreadsheets and I have to try and plan everyone's schedules out all the way into the future. So having recently been spending a lot of time in that, there's some stuff in there that I'm not allowed to talk about, but I can't wait until everyone gets to see it.
We are all
Why
very
do they have to
passionate
put
about
that
the
in?
projects,
This is
both
the
Squadron 42 and Star
localization
Citizen,
thing.
and we want to make sure
What's
that the
the point of
translations
that?
provided are the best
This is what
possible.
I mean, dude. It's always trying to leave you on the hook for something.
We know
I
that
can't wait till you see
our
this.
community is very engaged, and we know there have been other translation endeavors for Star Citizen as well.
For localization.
But we try
What are they
to
hyping?
engage every single user, not only the people who have played the game for a considerable duration of time. So bear with us, not every translation will be as you think it could be. We will try to make improvements as much as possible, and we hope that you're going to like it.
The Siege of Orison was the Persistent Universe's biggest and most ambitious dynamic event yet, pushing at the seams of AI, server performance, FPS systems, and more. And while it recently returned to players in last week's Pirate Week celebration, we wanted to check in with the team and discuss some of the fixes and adjustments that went into this second wave of events, and the advancements to all of Star Citizen that came from this technology-stressing event.
We were watching the same stream at the same time, and I see Elliot
giving him little hints,
desperate to give away the secret,
I was just very excited.
and he's getting more and more obvious. And I'm like, Elliot, maybe, to a point where I can't write what I want to say in the chat anymore, so I'm
Is
texting
this about
him.
me? No.
Stop.
No, because I told Elliot to never give me any info. And then I think it was Veteran Clacky that I played with. And he had already found the secret. So we just walked through it together. I think this is Burks.
Stop.
Just stop. You are going to give it away. And ultimately he did.
Based on what you guys are saying. I didn't know that was Burks, but...
The whole point of Siege was to
Okay.
push FPS and healing gameplay, right? Like, and looting and all that. Like, been in the game for several releases, some of it, and like it wasn't being used to its fullest extent.
Still isn't.
And we thought, well, what better way to use that and actually show players that the consequences of being downed.
The cool thing about Siege is when we have a big event like this, it gets us a lot of sort of improvements to the game. You know, because of Siege, there was some sort of more of a focus on looking at some of the back-end type performance, and they found issues, and that's unlocked 100-player servers for people.
Okay.
It helped to push towards it.
That's kind of cool. I got
Over the
downed and
course
someone
of it,
looted
like,
you.
already running, you know, me and Luke was watching streams, and we was having
It was
constant
me.
conversations as to ways we could improve this mission, not only for future iterations on it, but also just in the quick patches we can get out. We fixed the bug where when you completed an objective, you wasn't instantly paid. You should have been instantly paid, but instead what was happening was it wasn't being given instantly, but it was collecting, so when the mission ended, it awarded it all at once.
We fixed a number of flow breaking issues as well, like where bosses would just
Don't you... I always thought that was... I always look at these kind of things as like quests. And in MMOs, like you always turn in your quests so you do get paid at the end. I have found it to be weird that when you... The way that they make the missions now feels like very exploitable. Because if you're getting paid as it goes, just being in the party gets you paid. Right? So it's like a weird concept to me. But I guess that would work. Is that true, Marcus? I don't know. I'm such like an old school MMO guy, not new school. So he said that most quest chains are mini quests now. Okay. I just like it's a weird concept to me because I was always like, okay, you do everything, you turn it in, and there you go, right? But yeah, okay.
fall through the floor and be unreachable.
We added an objective, a secondary objective for disabling the anti-air and give a reward for it. So, you know, players knew that it was something you could do, but also it isn't the main focus.
We've taken steps to prevent griefing around that first area that you get off of a shuttle. We now spawn Crusader security that kind of take up guard posts at that shuttle stop. We hope that's enough to kind of ward off the griefers.
We changed how the ending kind of happened.
'Cause it's
Before
AI.
it was very like you got an audio line saying please leave, and then that kind of reoccurred. We also added this to the HUD so players can see actively a please leave. When any player leaves the area, the mission will complete for them and they'll get all their extra rewards that were required. One thing we noticed was players were server hopping when the event had finished to try getting another event that had just started.
It's
and because
griefing,
of that,
Virgil,
they wasn't
shut up.
getting all the rewards from the mission.
What was happening
because
there
of
was
that
absolutely
bug I
griefing.
previously explained as
And
well.
you complained
We
about
are
it more than
working on
anybody.
dialogue improvements.
Come on.
I got heavy hits locking down
Now
each of the
arriving
platforms.
at Solanki platform.
You don't stand a chance.
You're trying to tell me that standing on a platform with a grenade launcher shooting into the shuttle is not griefing? Like, it is that is absolutely the intent of griefing. Killing other players is not griefing. They're talking about the specific situation waiting at the thing. It's just bad. So bad game design is the excuse for everything, not bad action, right? I'm sorry, but there's some things that are, you know, we're going to argue on this one. Is it a situation that is camping? Yes. But like, come on. I can't with that.
As we noticed, a few issues and ways
It's
we can
bad
tighten up
actors
some of the
too.
dialogue and audio lines. Working on extra things to do in the mission, so even if people do arrive late, they'll have something to do.
That would be
and
nice.
many other things like that, but I don't want to go too much into it.
The things being late, like if you come late to it, that's what turned me off to Siege of Orison. The people speed running it turned me off to Siege of Orison. I think that like there's plenty of good in Siege. I think it could be fun, but the thing that turned me off to it was the ability to just speed run it, and you are hearing that other people are achieving things, but you're not a part of it. It's not like a situation where everybody goes together as a whole, and I do find it to be a weird concept to me. And like these two guys are some of my favorite guys that work at the company, and I feel guilty for not enjoying it almost, but I just didn't.
Thanks to everyone who's participated in Siege of Horizon. It's been like really fun watching you guys and hearing your feedback on playing the event.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that
What did we learn?
the localization team is hard at work reinterpreting Squadron 42 for several languages and cultures around the world. That turning an eye to Star Citizen will begin with external web resources before they dive into the depths of the Stanton system. And that the Siege of Orison wasn't just a fun event for our players, it pushed the underlying technologies in ways that have improved experiences for every aspect of life in the persistent universe. Now remember that our CitizenCon livestream will be this October 8th at 8 a.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. UTC, and it's really like an entire season of ISCL crammed into a single quarter day. There's gonna be some cool stuff. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all here next week.
Cool. I mean, I'm just at the point where these ISCs are just recycling, and I'm getting bored of stuff like this. Hold on, I have to sneeze. But at the same time, the game isn't moving forward because PES and I guess CitizenCon, we talked about, well, nothing in CitizenCon is about 318 or moving forward. We still don't hear about Cargo Refactor, which, again, I don't think we should care too much about that. I think we all know by this point the Cargo Refactor is just probably boxes that you could move. That is cargo. I don't think it's going to be cargo timers. I don't think it's going to be, we know it's not going to be freight elevators, right? So we know all the things that they told us about for the Cargo Refactor is not going to be a thing. But the other thing is dynamic events. I'm like, with Siege of Orison, that was my limit on dynamic events. I don't think they are what we need anymore. I think what we need is the game to inform us to do things, right? A little bit like, hey, there is a shortage of this thing. Cargo haul it. Or it would be great if that thing was mining, right? And you can mine something and bring it over there, and then that creates piracy, and then that creates, right? Like, these kind of elements need to start becoming the focus more. Yeah, basically Quanta needs to be more of a focus, and informing the actions that we have in the game a little bit, and a lot less of these grand events that, yeah, sure, they tout that it gave some improvements, but I wonder if we could have had cargo missions made in that time. I wonder if we could have had salvage missions made in that time from that team. That's the mission team that worked on that. And as much as I think Siege of Orison is going to be a very useful and fun thing that could be used for events in the future, I'm starting to wonder if this these drops of content are to keep us busy until something actually happens, and it's starting to show that maybe that's the case, and it's becoming more obvious and less enjoyable, maybe. But yeah, so that's what I got for this week's ISC. I'm just, if next week's ISC is anything like this, it's going to be so annoying. And we talked about before, there hasn't really been a sprint report in a while, and it's kind of like, what's going on? So CitizenCon will probably get some juice back in our veins, but right now it's I'm just bored.